What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of One Big Fire. And we have the one and only Mr. Chuck Fazio in the house with us. You talk about bringing a big fire. Boys, what's happening? How are you guys doing?
What's happening?
Great being here. Great being here.
Excited Chuck is joining us again. Thank you, Chuck, for giving us your time. Man, it just reminded me of the first time we had you on the podcast. Shortly after you brought the brokerage over, Revelation Realty. But I think that, there's people that are listening that I don't know how anyone doesn't know you, but let's give you a quick little introduction, and then let's dig into a couple things that I know that are on a lot of agents' minds that they want to really kind of decipher and figure out. We're gonna talk about the big, beautiful bill today and what that means to you as an agent, the truth about it. And we're also going to talk about why 6,800 agents switched brokerages in Q1. It's actually a 66% increase, I think is what I read, over last year's quarter. So that's a big deal. So we're going to talk about it and chop it up. But Chuck, welcome, man. Tell us a little bit about, just for people that don't know Chuck Fazio. We know you. We love you. You're our brother. But tell us about Chuck.
Well, yeah, me and my beautiful wife, who's my best friend, we, since 2005, set out to own our own brokerage. And the long and the short of it is we built it to be the number one single office brokerage in the country. By the time we closed it down, 906 agents doing $2 billion in production a year out of one spot. And, making the move to EXP was probably the hardest decision I ever made in my life. And I know you guys know that because you were on that journey with me. And, one thing, what I live by is, look, you go through this life one time and you look for opportunities, and they're not just going to jump out at you and create this perfect scenario. If you're not taking risks, based on some educated facts, you're going to be sitting in the same place. So that's what we did. And, with your guys' help, partnering up, just literally just yesterday, we were on a walk and talking about, just reflecting back on that, how catastrophic that could have been in our life if it didn't pan out. Like I said, we didn't get paid one penny. There was not even incentives for us back then. I look at some people now, I go, shit, I don't like to take that incentive. And
Yeah.
But no risk, no reward. There's a lot of truth in it, and it paid off. And God definitely guided our path in doing that and partnering with you guys.
Chuck, I don't know if we even talked about this before. And I'm always curious on decision making and how people make decisions. For you and Angela, what was kind of like, okay, we feel good about this. I mean, obviously, a lot of prayer, falling on faith. But for you, what and Angela, what was like? Because I know people struggle with making decisions, and so any kind of like your decision making and how it helped you to make that decision, because that was, like you said, I mean, that was a massive decision that you guys had to make. I mean, it's literally a fork in the, we go this way, we go this way. Like for you, what was it that helped make that decision?
Well, operating a brokerage at that level, when you're in the mix and doing that, you don't really realize what you do, and it's just normal to you. And until we stayed in our own bubble, we didn't go hobnob with people and other broker owners. Until we really wrapped our mind around, holy crap, the enormous size of our company. Like I said, it was the number one single office, so nobody had one that size. And the headaches that you deal with, and because we've operated at that level for so many years, what became normal to us was completely abnormal in the industry. And we started to realize that the pain points we had were the pain points every other brokerage had. And we were getting tired of those pain points. We thought we owned a business. We thought, hey, this is what we're going to retire on. This is what will generate us, money, and not being around, especially you three. I mean, you guys, you made me think bigger because remember, like I said, I didn't hang around other people at the time. Nobody's going to give you advice. And the three things that, because I was never raised a business guy. I'll just outwork anybody. And the three things that, and I think it was Jay, you had mentioned something like this, and everybody thinks of money freedom, being wealthy, but nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people go to those other two pieces that go time freedom, and then that last piece, location freedom. That never even crossed my mind. Most people just strive to make money. But without those other two pieces, you really don't have a lot.
Yeah.
And that was the point that we started shifting our mindset going, yeah, we're making a shitload of money. We're not one of these brokerages that are skin of the teeth. We were making good money, but we were having our life sucked out of us. Mm-hmm. And if we had to travel somewhere, if we wanted to go travel, like we were talking earlier, wanted to go to Europe for a few weeks, we're on the phone all the time dealing with problems because nobody else is going to operate the way we do. So that was, John, to answer your question, that fork in the road to go, do we want to stay down this path that we think is comfortable, at least from a financial standpoint, or are we going to be just damn risk takers and look for those other opportunities? And we're risk takers, and that's what we did.
I love that. And being able to point out the different, the things that most people just get caught up in the routines in the day to day. They don't even think about the other elements, the other pieces of freedom. And, that's the thing that we experienced. I mean, we were all independent before, made the jump to EXP. And that's why part of the reasons we created NAEA and had the mastermind is because when you're independent, you're on an island. I mean, you really are on an island, and we were the safe, for people to come into that were on that island that had each other. And it's like, you just don't know until you get around people that are going to change your perspective and change your mind. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
That was the piece that EXP offers that we didn't even see on the radar, like to be around bigger thinkers that never even crossed my mind. Mm-hmm. And that was that, we always call it that secret piece that jumped out and go, wow, that the piece that we didn't even see is probably one of the biggest pieces that was available to us.
Yeah, I love that. Al, just because we're, time's sake, and I know we only have Chuck for a few minutes, can we jump into that second topic to where we can get kind of Chuck's perspective on that before he has to jump, and we can really why we're making, why we're seeing so many moves. And the thing that you pointed out in there, Al, that I read in that article, top producers are the ones that are making the jump. And that's the thing that we've seen in the headlines. And that's like, I want to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chuck, you had mentioned, 900 agents with your independent. You and Angela built that from nothing to 900 plus agents, 2 billion in production. But today, don't quote me on the exact math on this. That's more like 3 billion in today's, volume with where real estate's gone in the last 10 years. That was 10 years ago you did that, right?
Yeah.
So that leads to me a big thing. Like, it wasn't like you signed up 900 agents and they weren't producing. They were cranking out real estate in the greater Phoenix area, which kind of leads to this thing that we just read about. Q1, it was a record-breaking number of agents that switched brokerages. And the article we read from BAM, it didn't give specifics on, where they all migrated to. They did mention 2 revenue share-based companies in the article, but 6,800 agents changed brokerages, migrated. And what we noticed on the report that they were citing, which wasn't the BAM report, it was a separate recruiting report, was that mid-Atlantic states had the biggest shift, but they were also they had the biggest percentage of drop in agent productivity. So we could just kind of chat about that one thing, because really, Chuck, you as a leader, as a coach, broker, an owner, and now, one of the biggest influencers in our company. You focus heavily on production. You wouldn't be able to do 3 billion in today's volume, right? 2 billion 10 years ago, but it would be 3 billion today, and leading 900 agents, which I don't know. God bless you. And I don't know how you did that. I mean, that's serious.
That's why I'm here.
What are your guys' thoughts, Jay, John, Chuck, on 6,800 agents? Where do you think they're going, and why are they going?
I hear it, man. It's never been, I don't know if you guys are all feeling this. I'm sure you are, but I've never been as busy as I've been since probably 2017, 2018. Like the number of three-way calls I'm having, the quality of brokerages that are coming over. I think we've gone through the last 3 years, and from a broker perspective, when it's tight, it's really tight right now because it's been 3 years of, we have higher commission volume when you look at the numbers, but 3.8 million sales is compared to 5 million plus the 3 years prior. And so, I think people have been struggling, and they're just looking for a better way. You get to a place where if you're not making money and you don't know, there's got to be a better way. And that's, so I see that conversation, big brokerages moving over right now, but the individual agents, I just had a call this morning, and she said literally that she hadn't even seen anything of mine. It was a scheduled call that I got from Humanize, which I had canceled 3 months ago, and they still keep doing it. But she said my repeat and referral business is just not as consistent as it used to be, right? Which is people are on the fence, not selling with 3% interest rates. They'd like to move across town to that neighborhood, but they just can't justify the higher interest rate and the higher prices and making the move. And so people are just open to something different. And this lady's been in business since 1985, and just looking for some place that has some predictability and consistency, some way to get, more consistent and predictable business, because the ways that I've been doing it are no longer working. I hear that over and over and over and over. And, I think that, EXP has just been the destination for, and we've been recruiting agents the last 7 years. They've been, picked out and pawed at to come to EXP, so what's the first thing they think that maybe I should try this EXP thing? Maybe this is, worth giving it a shot. So I think that's been part of the reason we've been so busy. I think the model's proven. I think we're at scale. I think the grass isn't greener. We went through 3 years of agents, leaving EXP, going over to one of these Me Too. I call it the Me Too movement. And realizing that, and Chuck, I love your insight on this too, but, when we were growing, when we were at 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 agents, we were not perfect. It was a total shit show in many respects, but we were still growing. So we were able to, we were willing to deal with more of that as we tried to scale and keep the, wheels between the ditches. And these companies are hitting attrition at an earlier stage than we did. And so the growth isn't happening. All this hope that the grass was going to be greener and this is going to be the next EXP, and you can't solve this problem, and I can't talk to a human, and all of these things that you have to deal with while attrition, while they're not making money. They don't have the money to go put into solving these problems, getting the right people, getting to scale. I think people, you get to a place where they're like, listen, if this isn't gonna fix, I gotta go. Like, I can't stay here. And so we're not losing agents to the competition. The competition is coming back, and it really feels like we're just, in a blue ocean right now in terms of the best place to be to build your business.
Yeah. And to jump on that, Jay, and it's because I got to watch how agents actually work functioning in a brokerage. Having 906 agents, what people also don't realize, over the years I've had it, I've overseen thousands of agents. Mm-hmm. And most people, the average agent, even team leaders, really can't get the whole spectrum of what our agents have. What is their mindset like? We have, because we dealt with them for years. And one of the things I can tell you, and this is just human nature, I'm going to venture to say that everyone on this call on a disc level is a D. Some level of high D. I mean, me and Angela are just both off the chart. D's. It looks like they have the same disc. And what I realized by understanding that is D's are the minority of the population. I think it's like 14 or 16%. So when you put that in perspective, most people you deal with are not drivers. They're not going to jump. Matter of fact, they actually look for the perfect scenario of no hiccups, which will paralyze anybody. So Al, when you said those numbers, here's what I'm really believing just by understanding the nature of people and agents, is they're finally going, wait a minute, this model is the future. You know, whether it be us or those Me Too's, which I agree, Jay, is look, Me Too's are fine. What they're saying is, look, that model works, and we want to copy it, just like we copy stuff, you know, in our own businesses. So I think what people are finally going is they're not going to be looked at as crazy taking those risks anymore, because it ain't a risk. What I do tell people, though, is when you look at EXPS, when we were in it, it was a shit show. I mean, there were times I'm going, shit, what the hell did I do? But we also know as drivers, you got to keep failing. You fail forward. That's how you get ahead. And we paved the path. We laid it down. What people aren't realize is what we were and what we've been, we're at a whole different spectrum already. So those Me Too's, they're just trying to figure out what we did at the beginning. We're already 10 steps ahead. So I got to tell you, when me and Angela talk to agents or I talk to broker owners, I literally just say to them, you're absolutely insane not to make the move.
45.
Like I can't emphasize what I know in my brain about running brokerages to go, this is the perfect model. And quite honestly, we're just beginning. You know, people go, oh, I should have got in before. Look where you're at now. Look, when you have that in your mind, you don't understand business, especially real estate.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing too there, I mean, Chuck, 100% spot on. I think too, you look at the other companies, you know, we were able to do what we were doing. And Jay and I, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago and brought in the factor, you know, ROL, right? Return on luck, and the timing of the market. It was a tailwind, right? And just everything lined up, and ROL is a real thing. And so what these Me Too's and all these other people are facing now, they're facing a headwind. They're facing a real value proposition, solving a real problem. But I think fundamentally, you go back to human nature, which you know very well, Chuck, like community drives everything. And when when people are in desperation and they're not getting the community, they're not getting the support, they look to see, well, where is the community growing? Where are the movers and shakers in this industry that are actually selling houses and actually doing things? Community is the attraction. And no matter what happens into the future, I am just like, community will always be there, right?
You know what, John, and people back then, when we jumped into this, even my agents, because the way I built my company was the physical space, community. Even the world we lived in really didn't grasp community until the pandemic hit, to see that, oh my gosh, you don't have to be face to face to have community. You know, something just like we're doing now. I mean, think about it. Every one of us could have a story going, how many people did you make friends with that became your close friend that you didn't even meet in person?
Exactly. Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Right.
So it's the world we live in is now catching up to the vision we had.
Yeah. It really is. It's wild. And I think, the bigger, the bigger will continue to get bigger. And I think, it's just a freight train that is not going to be derailed unless it's, blown up from inside. But as all of us on this call know, who's jockeying this ship, I think we're in good hands.
Yeah. It really, it's like the Rogers bell curve of adoption, right? Like when you really think about it, it feels like, we know we were kind of the early adopters, right? So then there's the chasm, and then it's, the early majority and the late majority. That's the bulk, right? But at that point, the company has to have a total and complete solution. It needed to solve a big pain point for all of us. It did. And so this model solved the pain point that we all saw and we all experienced as the highest producing agents in the industry. And we're like, no brainer, we're going to do this. And now what's happening is, like, when you come on board now, we used to make $10 million a year selling coaching, EOS. They give that shit away free. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter if you're a big team, you want to build a team, if you're a brand new agent, fast cap, like, there's something for everyone. And so we're becoming the complete and sole solution for anyone in real estate. And I feel like we're now getting the early majority, but we're just getting started. Like, there's so many people that, like, I got off the call this morning, and she's like, I've never heard anything like this. Like, I've never heard anything like this. Like, she still had no clue. And in the article, Al, you were sharing earlier, is that this is a value game. It's a value game now, and it's not just a recruiting game. That's what the old model, the old legacy models are all, recruiting brand new agents, get them in, a few of them sell a handful of houses, and then they go off and get out of real estate. That's the old the model. Now is, how much value can you add to the agent? And that's what, at scale, the advantage of being cloud-based and having revenue share is the component for growth, the growth engine of the company. All agents can participate, not all of them do. But then the rest is, how do we add more value to the agent, more value to the agent, more value to the agent? And that's why we're winning. We're winning because we're actually helping agents get into production. I always jokingly say, like, when you get a real estate license, they should just give you a plaque that says "figure it out," because that's what it feels like. And that's how every single, like, a million real estate agents that are not EXP are just, every time I say that, they all go, "Oh, that's how I feel right now." Like, that's why they end up getting on a call with me, because there's no one actually helping them. There's not a path for them to get to success. And as we become that more complete solution, it becomes a no-brainer for even the middle agents that are not just the top producers. All the top producers are coming. It's such a no-brainer for them. But even for that agent that's new, having a plan to get into production is critical, or you're not going to survive this business. And so it's a fascinating time right now. And just watching the company execute on things like at world-class speed blows my mind.
Yeah, I got to jump, guys.
Chuck.
I would love to. I know it was a last minute for me to get on. You guys have been awesome. I'd like to do it again. And, for anybody listening to this, I couldn't have partners like you guys and everyone else. So one of the pieces I always say about EXP, yes, we got great leadership. Yes, we carved the path. But the people we have at this company, the other companies don't have them. So, hey, I love you guys.
Love you, Chuck. Safe travels, buddy.
I'll see you soon.
Appreciate you, brother.
Man, so to your point, Jay, what you're talking about, and it was it's a concept in guy. His name's Pete Martin. He's a disciple. He's a Vern Harnish disciple, and he this is what he says. He says, "Job to be done." Right? Like, people hire the job to be done. So you think about everything that EXP is providing, it's because it's a job that they're looking to be done, that they don't have the resources or understanding that they need it. EXP is providing it. It's no different than, I honestly believe, like, to me, the indicator of where the company's going is everything Kendall Bonner's doing. Like, if you want to pay attention, you want to see the future of EXP, just go study what she's doing. We talked about it. I sent you the book, whatever the name of the book is. Like she's out there. Like, she has her own team. She does her own thing. She beats to her own drum. But she, like, you want to see where the future is, just go see what she's doing. And, like, she's bringing in companies and bringing in resources, like the equivalent of place to individual agents. Like, we have that. It's a job to be done. And the reason these legacy brands, because one, they don't understand to provide a job to be done to the agents in today's climate. They're just not thinking about that. One, they're in panic mode because they got 4 cents of every dollar to make the thing work. And the math is impossible. So it's just really interesting times. It's moving fast.
Yeah, it is.
It's moving real fast.
I think the big thing that that we've kind of been working on for the last 7.5, almost 8 years is our value proposition. And what it was, hey, come on over. We're going to, basically give you all the things that we used to sell coaching for, everything that made us successful. Here, take it. It's yours. And of course we do, live every week. We do our group coaching and whatnot. And Jay, you really dug in and created an irresistible offer. And I wanted to say, preface it with that, because this is an offer that no one else can make. No. There isn't just at any of the other companies. There's no one else that can do what we're doing. In fact, I was just texting someone that we all both know, and went to one of the competing brokerages, and I sent it to him. I sent him the webinar that we've been using. Okay. And just like, here, man, this is like when you have two pro teams going at it. Okay. And one team says, here's my playbook, take it. The other team usually, takes it and runs with it. Like, oh, I'm going to look at this playbook. I want to see, what
are they doing over there?
Run, whatever it is. And so we can give our play, literally give it. Here you go. And you can't duplicate it. It's just impossible. So yeah, I mean, when you talk about movers and shakers, I texted you, Jay, and I don't want to give it away, but like literally tell me, like, Tracy, year to date, up into from January through this May, she's onboarded how many people, or at least are including the current list right now?
Yeah, so the currently in the onboarding which we started making this offer. And by the way, like, spoiler alert, let me just tell you what we do. Like every single agent we hand on board, and then we have a plan from day 1 to day 90 to get them into producing 2 to 3 deals a month consistently. And it's what every agent's looking for. Like, I need something predictable, consistent. They say it on every call. They don't know where to go. They bought this, that, the other, and it doesn't work. And we know how to generate customers for agents. Like, if you increase conversations per day with people that want to buy and sell real estate and are open to doing business with you, you will sell more houses. That's the leading indicator. So the kernel of the strategy is to do that for every single human we bring on board, and doing it at a level of implementation being done for you that you can't get stuck, or you don't have to go. Like, going back to what you were saying earlier, like what we used to do in coaching, we used to be like, man, that, like the half the people on this call, your Caleb's, your all the people that we know that are super A players,
Steve McCarthy,
you could give them the game plan and the playbook, and they go execute it. And then for everyone else, you get stuck somewhere in the process of, like, I can watch a bunch of videos, but did I follow it exactly? Or, I didn't quite get to it because I got busy, and, I didn't implement this piece. And so, most agents struggle with implementation. Like, you're busy, and then, when something does start to work, you're just busier. And so it's harder to execute when you're busy. You're working in the business, not on the business. And so, it really comes down to just providing, that value. As far as onboarding this right at this moment, as far as the last update, we didn't have a meeting yesterday because of Memorial Day, but we had 100 people in onboarding right now that are going through the process. We onboard you into the tech. We build your ad strategy and your lead generation system. We help you with your branding elements and done for you, all of that. We help you with a content strategy that aligns to the type of leads that are being generated, so it makes sense, right? You don't just create content and hope the algorithm shows it to someone. You find out someone's interested in a particular product, and you create content that's valuable to that particular person. And so that strategy works. And so, I think building a brand is extremely important to a certain audience of people. But that's, we've onboarded more this year than we did all of last year so far already. And it's because we're playing the value game. And, this was a decision that was made, honestly, out of understanding investing in money. I've invested in apartments. I look for a double. That's a common number you're looking for, double in 7 years. I like the tax deductions, especially with the 100%. Caleb mentioned that. That's definitely good for us in terms of investments. But, where can I create $3 million of passive income in 5 years? Right here at EXP, right? So why not put more money into building systems to add and execute on what the agent needs, so it's infinitely easier for you to bring an agent on, and they're way more likely to be successful if they do join us. And so, like, that was just the mindset coming into this year, is like, let's go. Let's do the thing that we know that they need, and really understanding the problem. It is getting customers. You got to get customers, and you have a sphere of influence and repeat and referral, and that's a certain segment of the business, but it's not very predictable and it's not very consistent. You never know when it's going to happen. So you have to learn how to turn strangers into customers. You can do open houses every Sunday. I hate that strategy. You can knock doors. I hate that strategy. You can make calls and cold call, and it work. All these things work, but not everybody's going to want to do those things. Like I'm just not, I understand the problem. Let me help you solve that problem. And then when you put a group of A players together to implement and execute that, it's a world of difference. I mean, people are just very appreciative of that. And so that's why, that's one of the main reasons that we're growing right now at the pace that we are, compared to the last few years being, a little bit stagnant. But it's been the best thing I've ever created by a long stretch.
Yeah, I love it. Al, we'll go to the next topic real quick. But I was listening to Bezos again last night on something. I've heard him just over the last few days catch the same. It's probably variations of the same clip. And he's like, listen, he said, you're gonna get in trouble if you focus on the competition. If you focus on the customer, you will always win. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the other companies out there, they're focused on the competition and they're not focused on the customer. They're not focused on their agents. And that's why we're winning. That's why EXP is winning, is because we're focused on the customer and we're not focused on the competition.
That is such a great point, John. I mean, the timeliness of that is eerily like great. I don't know how, but it was like literally because Friday I got blown up. And I don't even want to get deep into the weeds on this one because it just kind of annoys me. But there was another agent in our market who was heavily focused on the competition and got himself into some trouble because of it. And it was one of those things. Jay, we went to the meeting in Dallas. We're talking about people. I was like, you know what? That room was not in there talking about the competition. We were in there talking about the customer. We were in there talking about how can we increase our value proposition to the agent. And it was amazing because everyone was humming the same song from the same song on paper, sheet of paper. And nothing feels better than that. I remember a couple years ago when, in the Alpha Group, when it was just turning into this massive just show of negativity, and it was because fear crept in, it broke through the door, and you know what? It's gone. We got a leader that does not. It's like oil and water with fear. The dude's absolutely fearless. And Leo Pareja, we are thankful for him as well. But yeah, let's dig into our second topic, the big beautiful bill, fellas. Some good stuff in this. We're going to focus just on the good stuff because there's a lot of other unknowns, but the stuff we know about is how it's going to affect real estate agents, homeowners, and investors that are looking to increase their portfolio, buy more apartment buildings, whatnot, and what we can do with that. All right, I'll start out. Let's see. I just lost my page. Here we go. All right. So one of the things I wanted to point out, which I didn't know, I actually literally had to look this up, and maybe you guys knew, but a qualified business income deduction. I kept hearing about it. And for those of you listening and you don't know what that means, if you're like an independent contractor, solopreneur, whatnot, which is us as real estate agents. This new bill makes a permanent deduction for qualified business income after December 31st, 2025. So that the current deduction set to expire the end of this year. This will then extend it and raise that deduction from a 20% to a 23% deduction. 90% of NAR members classify as independent contractors, small business owners, and everyone will benefit from this. If it went away, that means you're going to be paying 20% more in taxes, and it's 23% it's going up to if the bill passes the Senate. Kind of a big deal. Now, this would be for if your taxable income is below, I believe it's like $190,000, maybe 193, something like that. So if you fall into that category, 90% of NAR members, which I would imagine 90% of our agents do as well. This is a good thing in relate to what you're paying in income taxes.
Yeah, that is really good. And I think it's a good point to point out. Like everybody's like, man, what does our NAR money go to? Like what are they doing for us? Stuff right here. These things right here that are looped in here, like 1031 exchange would go away if NAR wasn't there. This tax deduction would go away. In fact, they were pushing for us to become wage employees instead of 1099. So like that's the thing that people don't understand. What good, bad, indifferent, whatever you want to think or say, that's what NAR is there doing. I mean, get into whatever else about it, but the whole intent in what they're fighting for is to keep these things available for us, and the things that are here that you're discussing now in this bill.
Yeah, and the truth is, guys, we all know, being real estate professionals, being in this business as long as we all have a lot of friends that are on the other side, the mortgage side of this. And the mortgage, even the guys, I mean, I want you to imagine, just think of the first name that pops in your head of a mortgage broker out there who's just killing it. They've been killing it. They're at the top of the game. They're making a few million a year. They are probably paying double what we are paying, in taxes, because they're all W-2'd. And that's a big difference between your average, your mortgage broker and a real estate agent, is that, my buddy Chuck, he's W-2'd. He has to look for other ways of trying not to give half of his money to the IRS. And so it's a big deal for us. We should be super happy about it, which actually brings us to the mortgage interest rate deduction. There's a lot of politicians that want that to go away. And I'll tell you this right now, that would affect not just, for realtors, we're talking your average homeowner.
Kill the real estate market.
Yeah. And there's a lot of careful who you vote for. A lot of people who want to see bigger government, they want to see this go away. They want that money coming in. And that's a part of the big, beautiful bill. They're preserving, and this would be a deduction for the first $750,000 in home mortgage acquisition debt. So if you have a $1 million loan, you're only allowed to deduct from, I guess, $750,000 of that. So I guess it would be a percentage of it. Maybe they take 75%, whatever it is, based upon what I'm reading here. Another thing I want to talk about, child tax credits. Mm-hmm. That's being preserved under this. So anyone who has kiddos that are under the age of 18, it's $2,000 per child tax credit that's going to be preserved with this bill. And there's low income housing tax credits. That's a big problem throughout this entire country. Is we have a housing shortage. It's just getting too expensive for the average person to actually live and buy a home. I was actually just reading an article in preparing for today's podcast, guys. So this is actually, it was an EXP agent had the buyer for this deal, but there was a house. It was like a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom little ranch home in LA somewhere. Okay. And a serial murderer lived there. Now, I don't think he murdered anyone at his house, but he was a serial killer. Killed like 16 people or something crazy, right? Well, the new owners are suing everybody who sold them that house because they didn't tell them that a serial killer was living there. Okay, whole different thing here, but oh darn it! Now I'm losing where I was kind of coming into that story. Oh, that house, this guy that was a serial killer. That house is worth $850,000 right now for a tiny little 3-bedroom ranch with no basement. $800,000. If that doesn't tell you how unaffordable it, and especially in California, our friends in California, it is not cheap to live there. And that is one of the benefits. Everyone's like, oh, so how do you like Ohio? It's cheap. You can live pretty high on the hog for next to nothing. Like my mortgage payment's like $2,400 a month. And I live in a pretty nice house on a golf course. Like where else are you going to do that? Not in California. So, it's a big deal when we're talking about these taxing credits. That's going to help it's going to incentivize people like us that like to invest in real estate to invest more in low income housing. So it's a big deal. And I'm glad that that's part of the bill. Guys, I want your, we'll kind of end on this one here because it's a big one for investors. So let's talk about, I guess they call it like the big three, right? we're going to be, if you're a real estate investor and you buy a property, let's say for, I don't know, $3 million, it's a multifamily apartment, and you close on the property. Instead of just 40% of the cost, being able to write that off up front, we are going to now be able to expense 100% of that qualified property up front for the next 5 years. Jay, go ahead and jump in.
Jay, explain what that means.
Yeah,
so everybody understands that.
Essentially, you can do this on single family properties as well, but this is a huge deal, and it's a huge advantage, from a tax perspective. But the 100% bonus depreciation means you can do a cost segregation on that property where they look at the use of life of everything from windows to concrete to every aspect of the building, and you can write this bonus depreciation off 100% of it in the first year. And so that might mean, let's say you put 100,000 into an investment into a syndication or an apartment deal. You might be able to write off 70 to 80% of that investment the first year. So you get a negative K1 against your taxes. It makes investing in real estate, specifically in apartments. And there's other, segments as well. There's, different, different buildings have different advantages in terms of this, but apartments, because there's appliances, there's all these things that add up, it's a huge deal. So it was 40% before, now it's back to 100%. And so that's a tremendous opportunity for tax deductions for people that have money to invest in real estate. So it's certainly, me not living in Puerto Rico, paying 4% tax now is going to be one of my main strategies.
Yeah.
And then Section 179 decrease deduction increased as well to 2.5 million. So for buying business equipment, vehicles, and things of that nature. So that's another big one. And there are, for those that are looking for strategies, you can invest. You could buy $1 million worth of equipment. There's companies that you can make an investment and then they lease that stuff out for you. So let's say you put down 100,000 on 10% down on $1 million worth of equipment. They spread that out amongst different industries, different types of equipment, and then they lease them for you. So they're cash flowing, and you get $1 million deduction from the total amount that you borrowed against. And then they guarantee to buy that equipment back at a pre-agreed price, I believe, in year 5. So there's a lot of ways to defer tax, if you will, that without these, we're just paying a ton of taxes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Al.
Said deferring tax. You're not avoiding taxes. It's deferring taxes, right? Because that is a big thing, and we're not tax advisors. So talk to your CPA with specific questions.
Well, let me. I was talking to a friend that stopped by the house here yesterday that got hit with $125,000 in additional taxes. Not a real estate guy, just a normal guy, has a bonus structure. He got paid, hit a bunch of bonuses for the company he works at, and his tax accountant, who he paid $1,000 to do his taxes, said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you owe $125,000 more than we thought you owed." And I want to stress, you need a tax strategist, okay? Mm-hmm. Not just a tax accountant. You need a tax strategist. A tax accountant is just going to count the beans. You need a strategist that gives you strategies for deductions. And that's, I think, for most of my life, I didn't know there was a difference. So definitely, look for someone that understands tax strategy and, work with them and an accountant to do your taxes.
There's two things. I was talking to Kurt Shewell before we jumped on the podcast here, and Al and I sat at the Build in Detroit last year, and Mark Z gave, I think, probably one of the most important and probably one of the best presentations for real estate agents to ever hear in their entire career. And they're about to launch Mark's $100 million portfolio program, to where he went from 7 million of worth to 100 million. And he broke it down in the presentation. Anyways, they have a whole investment program that they're about to launch on that, and how critical that is to have, the right rooms, the right advice. And then Kurt was also telling me something. It goes back to the point here of the most critical information, other than customer acquisition and leadership, but understanding the investment, but also understanding the tax game. Because he was telling me one of Kyle Whistle's best presentations is around the tax strategy. And Kurt took exactly what what Kyle's talking about and pressure tested against his gal. And she goes, oh yeah. It's 100%. Yeah. You don't need this. Oh, yep. Oh, and you have this, this, and this. And he goes, good, you're staying, right? Because that's exactly to your point. You got to have a game changer. That's a strategist that is helping you strategize the moves and taking advantage of everything that's available in the game. And so, you guys listening in, I mean, tap in, man, tune in, find, we've got Caleb's on here. I mean, he's well-versed being able to tap in. I mean, you guys as well, Kyle Whistle, Mark Z, Kurt Shewell. So there's a lot of people, within this community, within the Honey Badger Nation that we can tap into to really make sure. I mean, there's no excuse, right? There's no excuse. There's all the resources. Goes back to what we talked about and what Chuck said, man. It's all about community. And that's really what the Honey Badger Nation and One Big Fire is all about.
Yeah. Just to give a point of clarity before we wrap up here, why is it important for these tax incentives for people that have the money that want to invest in the police? Because we need to keep this money rolling. We don't want millions and millions of dollars just sitting in money market accounts doing nothing. We want the money working, not just for us, but for the community. When we start investing in the communities, which is what we've been doing, Jay, every time we buy a new apartment building, we're investing in the community. We're investing in housing. Okay. It keeps other jobs going. Okay. And this is what keeps this economy going. So we need to keep the money going. We don't want people just be sitting on this stuff. We want them investing into real estate. We want them investing in starting new businesses. And the way to do that is to give them don't keep taxing them on top. When you think about it, how much we are taxed, if you really, really knew, you'd probably be sick because we're taxed on top of taxes. Okay. Like they tax us and then tax us on top of that. And so it is a big deal. And you should have a tax strategist. If you don't, Jay, I don't know where we could even tell them to begin. I guess just Google it. But I know of there's a guy.
There's a couple. I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I mean, I wouldn't say I wouldn't recommend, but there was a guy that spoke at Cardone. I can't remember his name, but if you Google tax strategist, I'm using. There's a book. I think John, you might have been the one that told me about it, but Jim Dew. It's called Beyond a Million, the book. And
I just I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that's who I'm working with. It's kind of like a mini family office setup. It's not cheap, but so it's probably not for everybody. But if you just Google the tax strategist or even watch some of the videos of their strategy of how they look at things, I think you'll learn a tremendous amount of things that you can invest in. Things I didn't know. Oil and gas has bonus depreciation. There's a lot of different investments you can get into to lower your tax base, which is that.
I think being inquisitive and utilizing the tools out there, right? AI can get you a way down the path of asking the right questions and I've been what Eric's built inside of Whoozy with Satori. Like I'll pull all the books and then just create a persona and create context and just like go to school and just learn just from the books and the teachings and the videos and stuff like that to get 80% down the road. Right. And then I think you need that expert to get you, in the red zone into the end zone. But I think if you're inquisitive enough and you're such a student, right, that you can ask the questions to get you into the red zone. But then I think you need the expert to get you into the end zone.
Mm-hmm. You nailed it, John. Ask lots of questions and get them from multiple sources. Do not trust one source.
Yeah.
Inevitably, it may not get you in trouble the first time or the second time, but if you just go to one source and that's it, you're going to get bit sooner than later. So go to multiple sources, ask lots of questions, have an open mind, be inquisitive. And last but not least, make sure you go to honeybadgernation.com, get your merch. Get the fresh merch out. I don't have my legacy one on because I just got back from the gym. I got the Agent to CEO. We're going to be making an announcement on Agent to CEO Cleveland here pretty soon. We're just waiting to hear back from one band. I need one yes. And you know who you are out there if you're listening. I need a yes. And we're going to blow the roof off of this thing this year. But stay tuned for that. Honeybadgernation.com. Get your merch. And what's up, Rob Edwards? How you doing, man? All right, we'll check it out. We'll find you on Workplace. Cool. Gotcha. Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. All right, fellas. Good stuff as always. And man, honeybadgernation.com. I know we've got a few days left to get our Honey Badger of the month. So is that Honey Badger? Can we get there at honeybadgernation.com yet? Can you get that to be able to vote? Is it there or is it?
Let's see here.
Last time I checked, it wasn't on honeybadgernation.com. It was a direct link.
Yeah, it's Honey Badger Award. Honeybadgeraward.com.
Honeybadgeraward.com. You guys go nominate that Honey Badger. There's some Honey Badgers out there that need some recognition, and just an opportunity to be able to showcase the many amazing people that we have in this community.
That's it. All right, guys.
All right, man.
Awesome. Appreciate you, fellas. See ya.
Yep.
Yeah.